There's so many things you're saying. This is like varsity level material. We're giving you guys 35 and 40 years of experience to your 10 years of marriage. You are
Yeah.
so far ahead of us right now.
I'm not going to come and hit them over the head and say, you're doing all this wrong. It's more a friend mentor that says, here's what it looks like and you can do it. Just hang in there.
Married dude, you've entered this stress bubble with your bride. The kids are on their way. How do you work through those early days of marriage so that you can create a healthy marriage that thrives? Today we interview Michelle Lentz, and she is going to give you pro tips on marriage after 40 years of being married. And she's going to target you men from a women's perspective. What is it that shuts a woman down? What are some things that we do as men to our brides that shut down their spirit?
Well, I mean, I mentioned saying certainly going to shut us down.
Michelle, it's so good to have you on the show. My strategic communications director was showing me your content. Your message is so similar to mine, your target audience. It's just wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you. And I love knowing you're out there because I have women reach out and say, hey, who can my husband follow? So
Oh,
perfect.
we've got something rocking here. So, okay, so I was looking at your Instagram bio, and you call it is called Hey Beginner Wife.
Right.
And I understand that you also have a book called Hey Beginner Wife. Can you tell me about why you came up with that name? And then let's jump into the book a little bit. I didn't know you wrote a book, so I don't have the book, but I'm really excited to learning what you're about and realize that our audience would be Hey Beginner Husband. So
Okay.
with that
Yes.
in mind, tell us about Hey Beginner Wife.
Right. So I started an Instagram account to share what I've learned about marriage. My husband and I have been married 40 years. We have 6 children. They came back to us and said, we get questions all the time. Like, what did you and dad do? You need to teach our friends. And I love that age group, 20 to 40. I just love pouring into them. And I've done that for a while. So I started Instagram with just marriage highlights, things that I wish I would have known, things really that I wanted someone to tell my daughter-in-law and future daughter-in-laws. And now I have 3 of them. So I brainstormed as to what it was that made for a happy, healthy marriage and came up with those principles. That's how I wrote the book. That's how I directed each chapter, was on characteristics I think women have within their control to bring to a marriage, like a cheerful heart, like self-control, like responding with respect, and what that looks like, because I completely misunderstood what that was, what friendship looks like in a marriage. So it's 17 chapters, and each one is a different character quality that you can bring to your marriage. I accidentally came across the phrase, hey, beginner wife. I was writing a post for Instagram and just was talking to the wife who was being too hard on herself, which is me and has been me since I got married, and basically said, don't be so hard on yourself. You're just a beginner wife. And your husband is just a beginner husband. He's learning. The two of you are learning, and you're developing a cadence, and you're growing into what you want, being a seasoned couple. And after I wrote that, I got a lot of positive feedback, and I realized, hey, that's really what these women are. And they need to be given the grace to be a beginner, because when you're a beginner, you fail. And when we recognize someone's beginning, we give them the grace and we encourage them and we come alongside of them. And so many women get married thinking, I know what to do. And they think it's going to be innate and intuitive. And then they start to realize, I have no idea what I'm doing. And how am I failing? So I thought, if I can identify that, if I can speak to the fact that you are a beginner, then hopefully women will feel that I will be gentle and graceful with them in how I approach the fact. I'm not going to come and hit them over the head and say, you're doing all this wrong. It's more a friend mentor that says, here's what it looks like and you can do it. Just hang in there.
I'll tell you what, this is so good. Now, because you focus on the female side of marriage, I know that you understand the male side. You've had to train up a man for 40 years. So, and I know that's true because I've been in training. My wife and I actually laughed because I said, if I died, would you remarry? She said, oh no, it just took too much to train you. I go, oh wow. Okay. So you in your book, beginner what hey beginner wife,
Uh-huh.
right? Hey, beginner wife, you talked about your book talks about the characteristics that a wife can invest into her marriage to bring a healthy and happy marriage. Okay. So now let's flip the script. What would you tell young husbands? You said your age range was 20 to 40. So
Mm-hmm.
for us, that's young, right? So
Yep.
give me a couple characteristics for a young husband who has a hey beginner husband that can help him to build a strong marriage. And I will say this, you mentioned this earlier. You have a video about don't give up in the early years. And I think this is really important. You said when two selfish people get married, their selfishness rubs up against each other. And that doesn't mean they married the wrong person.
Yes.
So don't give up. So what
Yes.
would you say, if you were to write a book called Hey Beginner Husband, what are some components to that?
I think one thing is the insight in knowing that we as women don't understand intuitively how men are wired for respect. How, as men, you all respect one another and it's your wheelhouse, and you would never, ever disrespect your wife. That is not innate in women. No one ever taught us that. In fact, what we've been taught is a natural disrespect. We are taught that men don't understand communication, they don't understand relationship, and that we need to take the lead in the marriage to make sure that our foundation is solid in communication, in understanding, in how to keep a house, how to keep it clean, and we just take charge. I would encourage a young husband to know we don't know any better. And we really don't understand what it means to respect someone who looks like they don't deserve it. So if I've got a husband who is messy or seems to show disregard for how I like things done, women are pretty picky about their homes and they want, for me, I want the dishwasher loaded a certain way. Well, my husband just doesn't get that. He just loads it to get the dishes clean. He doesn't care if there's 5 that don't make it. And I want everybody in the dishwasher all at the same time. So I couldn't let that go. I kept bringing it up. Why didn't you do it this way? I've told you this before. And it's a constant circle of correction. And that was disrespectful because I wasn't giving him the freedom to do it his way. I was assuming that my way was best. So I didn't even learn this until I heard a podcast of 2 men discussing it, one of whom had written a book on this whole cycle of women who are inadvertently disrespecting their husbands, and then men who are responding by not loving their wives because they're just irritating in that moment. And it's a cycle. So I would encourage young men to explore the whole idea that women don't get it. And that it's not just, I'll speak for myself. I thought my husband had to earn respect by what he did. He didn't just get respect because he did the basics. He had to go over and above. So the fact that he went to work and had a 40-hour job or what have you, well, I didn't think that was worthy of respect. That just was. It just is what a good guy does. It would be worthy of respect if maybe he got the sales award for the quarter. And I would think, wow, not every man can do that. That's amazing. And then I would encourage him. And what I realized was, no, he gets respect for actually getting out of bed in the morning and going and doing what's right. Just baseline respect. So I would just want young men to know that, to assume the best about their wife, that she's not trying to disrespect you. She's not trying to kick you in the gut with that comment. She really just doesn't know what she's doing.
Was the book you're referring to Emerson Eggerich's Love and Respect?
It was.
Okay, so we've had him on the podcast. So I'm going to take what you said and I'm going to flip it. So
Okay.
women If you read that, there's 3 household codes in the Bible: Colossians 3, starting with 17, 1 Peter 3, starting with verse 1, and Ephesians 5, starting with verse 22. In Ephesians 5, that's probably the primary household code, which is how the household is ordered. And it's really interesting to me. And Emerson brings out this point. He tells men to love their wives 4 times, 6 if you look at the correlation between Christ and the church. He tells men 4 times to love their wives, but he never tells a wife not one time to love her husband. But at the end of that passage in verse 33, I think it is, he says, wives, respect your husbands. And it was really interesting to me that our natural default, and you said this, my natural default as a man is to respect.
Mm-hmm.
We dress for respect. Everything about man is respect. It is our default. But God asks us, and man, you guys listening, this is what I'm talking to you right now. He asks us as men to do what's difficult, to do what's not our default, which is to love our wives. And so this is really, and Emerson calls it the crazy cycle if we don't do it. So I think this is very interesting. So, okay, so I'm talking to you. You are a marriage expert. Your sweet spot is helping young wives. So with the young guys out there listening, or even us older guys, if my default is not love, and yet God tells me to walk in my non-default setting, what are some ways that these young husbands can build a healthy marriage by loving this woman who loves differently and speaks a different language than him?
I think one thing that really helped us was the whole concept of what a love language is. You familiar with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So my number one love language is words of encouragement. And when we first got married, that was not Steve's number 1 or 2 or 3. And so he just didn't understand, like, how in the world can you need to hear this again? And he wasn't one of those who were like, I told you I loved you on the altar and I'll tell you if I change my mind. It was never like that. It just wasn't a daily bathing in the words I envisioned I would receive as a married wife. So part of it was me having to realize that's just not practical for most women. I mean, most marriages don't look like that. So I would encourage a young husband to find out what actually does invigorate your wife. Does she feel loved when you spend some quality time with her? And that could just be sitting with her for 10 minutes on the couch saying, honey, just talk to me. How was your day? And then she's feeling so encouraged and so blessed from those 10 minutes. And that would encourage me too. Some wives want to know that you've been thinking about them during the day, that you brought them home a coffee, you got them a card for no good reason. You remembered that they were out of, their favorite potato chips. So why not stop and get that just to surprise them? Just a tiny little gift is going to make your wife feel like you care and you love her. There's something that it really lands in your wife's heart to make her feel loved. And I would either become a student of your wife and figure out what that is. I would ask her if she recognizes it. And I would even consider reading that book, The 5 Love Languages. And there's a little test in there and it kind of tells you what you are. And it shows, I think there are quite a few men whose love language is actually doing things. It's acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
It's putting oil in the car. It's cleaning the garage. It's taking the trash out. It's recognizing that she needed something done and doing it. No words involved at all. But in his mind, he is doing something he might not even feel like doing because he wants to care for her. If that isn't one of her love languages, she's going to think he doesn't care. And he's not going to understand why in the world she doesn't feel loved when everything he did this past Saturday was for her. So I think that really helps. And I don't think young men, and actually quite a few young women, don't understand that we're wired differently. But we can be when it comes to how we feel loved.
Well, hey, you guys listen. We have had Gary on our show twice. So we'll provide the link in our show notes to those interviews with Gary. And I'll tell you, this is really interesting, Michelle. So I tell my wife I love her virtually every day. I think I've already told her I love her twice. She's a flight attendant. Whenever she flies, she says to me, taking off, love you. I tell her, heart emoji, you more. And because we never know if she's going to crash. We never know when our last I love you
Mm.
could be the last I love you. Getting emotional, the Italian side. I mean, emotional. Anyway, but it's really interesting because my love language is words of affirmation,
Mm.
and hers is acts of service.
Okay.
When we first got married, I'm pretty open about this, and this is actually in my new book, Guardrails. It's coming out in 2 weeks. My wife and I do seminars together, and we laugh because I say I married an angel and woke up with Satan, and she says I married my dream guy and woke up in a nightmare. I hated my wife. Like those first couple years, you have
Mm.
two streams of strong personalities coming together. Like the only reason we're together is stubbornness and Jesus in that order. And so I realize that you got to fight through those early years, but it wasn't until I decided to outlove and outserve her that she came alive.
Hmm.
I said, I'm going to make her coffee every day. I'm going to outlove her and outserve her. And if she never reciprocates, I'm going to continue to be Christ to my wife. And 15 years later, we discovered her love language is literally acts of service. So on my phone, she's the queen of my heart. And that does two things. It reminds me that she is my person, but it also tells me she's the queen and she needs to be served, which is her love language.
Yeah.
And so I think this is so powerful for these young guys. So what's another thing a young man can do to build his wife and grow a healthy marriage?
Well, just to follow up on the love languages, I want men to feel and women to feel the freedom to talk about it, because it's still love if you're talking about it.
Yes.
It's not like you just have to intuitively know or it doesn't count. And that's just craziness. If any women especially feel that way, don't do that to your husband. I will ask my husband, I say, honey, I just need an encouragement tonight. And I'll tell him what I need. I need it to be something you haven't told me before. I need a new detail. Now, I at first thought, can I even ask that? But I thought, well, you know what? Why not? That's what I want. I want him to come up with something that lands today. And I don't care if it's simple. I really appreciate the way you responded this morning. When I said that, you took the higher route and said this. I mean, that's good enough for me. It can be just that. But it's okay for men to say, hey, what is it today that you need from me? And vice versa. So something else, gosh, I think I give men so much credit for really doing such a great job.
Well,
My wheelhouse is thinking of how we respond and what's going on in us.
While you're thinking about that, let me just make a comment on what you said. And this is really important for our young wives and our young husbands. So Emerson talks about in his book, Men Speak Blue, Women Speak Pink. Well, there's a lot to that. But what I have discovered with my wife, and I have a PhD in Shannaology, right? So what I have learned about Shanna, and I think this is generally true for women, is that women tend to be circular in their communication, where men are very linear. So where men are linear, women kind of are more divergent. So for example, early on in our marriage, I said, hey, I'm going to the store. My wife said, can you get me tampons and can you take my car? Well, I thought that's really strange. Okay. So I did that and I came back and she said, did you buy me a Snickers? And did you put gas in the tank? I was like, you said no. She's like, oh, well, that's why I want you to take the car. Well, why didn't you say so? So now I believe you're not even a real man until you buy your first box of tampons. Okay. So, I can tell you Pearl, extra absorbency, I can tell you the whole thing. Right. So, but I learned in that moment as a young husband to interpret what my wife is saying, because she's not a linear, direct communicator to me unless she's frustrated. So I don't want to get her frustrated. I want to interpret. 2 nights ago, she said she's in Puerto Vallarta on a trip right now as a flight attendant. She said, I said, what time you get up tomorrow? She goes, 3 a.m. I said, okay. She said, are you going to get up with me? And I was like, heck no. I laid down in bed and I thought, okay, what was she really saying? She was saying, will you make me a coffee and put my luggage in the car? So she got up at 3:45 when she was getting ready. I went down and made her coffee and put her luggage in the car. So now I loved her according to her love language, and I read her pink language and her
Hmm.
kind of interpretive style. And I think this is important for these young men. Like, your wife does not communicate the way you do.
Right.
So you had another thought
Well, I think it's just eh, I respond. I think most women respond when men are gentle in the way they might bring something up rather than, and just women as well too. I encourage couples, don't use the words always and never when you're talking to each other, because what you're doing is making an accusation and then we shut down and we don't even hear what you just said. So I encourage both to say, well, actually, I encourage women, but in this context here, I would encourage men to say, can you help me understand why you responded to me in that way? And flip it in such a way that like you're irritated as a husband that she did or didn't do something, but to gently come and say, can you help me understand why you did this or why that didn't happen, and make it into a, hey, I want the best for us, I want to learn in our marriage, this is the heart posture that you have. um, she's going to be much more likely to open up to you if she feels like you are on her side and not coming to accuse her of doing something wrong. So I would encourage them in that, to actually have those conversations and figure out, how can I approach her in a way where she doesn't feel cornered, she doesn't feel judged, she doesn't feel like she's failing. I think a lot of women, I think both of us, men and women, don't think we're doing as good of a job when we're first married as we thought we were going to. And so we're already feeling a little bit of failure um, as to what we thought we were bringing to the table and what we're accomplishing. So I think for men to be gentle, that's what it looks like, is to approach a tough conversation in that way.
I love the be gentle part. And I would just say, here's a video idea for you. I have learned, my wife has really gotten good at this. One thing that shuts a man down is when a woman tells him, "You need to, you need to." It's incredibly disrespectful. I don't tell me
Hmm.
what I need to do. I already want to please you. I already want to love you. But I have found that seasoned women have learned the art of communication in a way that young wives do not. And it's this: the art, and you just said it. You actually just said it in your answer. The art of the strategic question.
Hmm.
Hey, why, I see you didn't put those last 5 cups in the dishwasher. Help me out.
Why?
What's going on? Hey, talk that. What did you see that I didn't see? Well, now he goes, oh, because men are very fact and linear driven. He sees it. Like my wife the other day, we were driving and she goes, "Hey, are you gonna turn here to go that way?" And I went, I hit the brakes. I forgot. And I turned and I looked at her and I go, "Dude, well done. That was a varsity wife move. You didn't tell me, you idiot. You asked me a question calmly." And
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing for wives to understand. So for a wife to ask a question, but for a man, we've got to be careful to not be. In fact, I think the Bible speaks to this. Do not be harsh. Don't
Mhm.
treat her harshly. To treat her gently. So what is it? Let's do this. What is it that shuts a woman down? What is it a young man does, or an older man, seasoned man? What are some things that we do as men to our brides that shut them down, shut down their spirit?
Well, I mean, I mentioned saying you always do this or you never do that. An accusation is certainly going to shut us down. I remember something that was very frustrating for me, and every month when you're PMS and your hormones are going crazy and you don't know yourself why you're upset. I think learning that as a couple is so challenging because we don't understand ourselves. And then you have a husband who's trying to understand and make sense of it. And it's kind of like, you don't understand. I don't understand. I'm going to go watch the game. And I remember feeling like, no, like, I need you to sit here. I'm sorry that I'm so needy right now, but I really do need you to care and not walk away from me. And I think this is hard. I think it takes a while. You only have a day or two every month where you're in this craziness. Um, and I was able to say to Steve, you know what? When you walk away, it feels like my feelings aren't important and I don't want my feelings to run the show. but I'm also sad right now. And maybe I just need to be held. Like maybe that's it. And usually that was it. And sometimes we would say, or he might say, would it be okay if we waited and talked about this in 2 days? Yes. I learned that it was okay to wait.
And men need that. We need time to process. We don't need to feel cornered. If we feel cornered, we're going to go to the garage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if a man says, honey, this is important to me, I don't want to discount this in any way, but I think it's fair that you're going to feel a little bit differently in 2 days. Can we do that? And
Mm.
then, I mean, there was a season where it almost feels elusive, like an emotion, because it is kind of an up and down thing. Um, I learned a lot by journaling. And so to even just say, and for a husband to even ask, maybe could you write it down? Like, could you write it down today, and then how you're feeling, and then you'll have a better grasp, and maybe I'll have a better grasp when we sit down in 2 days. But I would encourage men not to discount it, because it's so real in the moment that it feels very alone when your husband is like, I'm going to go watch the game. And then, I mean, maybe if a wife is learning, she could say, how about I sit next to you and you put your arm around me? I mean, there's the give and take of flexibility. I don't want a wife to hold her husband hostage and, require that he spend the whole night with her on the couch while she cries, because that's just not fair.
So what would you tell the young husband? Because we are natural problem solvers. It's our superpower.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting ready to write a book on this in about 3 months. It's our superpower. Women are problem identifiers. It's their superpower, right? So what would you say? This is the mistake I made, sadly, more times than I want to admit, where I see my wife going crazy and I go, oh, well, I know the problem. Honey, you're PMSing. Problem solved, right? Okay, now that you know you're PMSing, get a grip of your emotions and your hormones. So what would you say to the man who said, I just tell my wife, I just identify the problem. What would you tell these problem-solving men about how that works with a wife?
Well, I hope that this is a fair answer. This is a female answer.
I'm asking for a female answer.
Okay. I would say, if I was the husband, I would say, honey, can you tell me what you need from me in this conversation? Would you like me to listen? Would you like me to solve your problem? What's my role? And more often than not, the role is to listen. And I think as a husband, if he knows that, he can relax. It's not as, it's going against your nature, but at least oh, okay, my role is to be sympathetic and empathetic and hold your tongue even though you see the answer. But there are sometimes, I'll go to Steve, I need to process this out loud. Can I walk through all the steps without you interrupting, unless you need clarity? And then at the end, can you give me what you think would be helpful? And that has worked really well for us, is to just define his role at the beginning.
Well, what's really good about your answer, I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation. So women are verbal, right? They speak
mostly
up to 3 times more words a day than the husbands will. Men are visual, right? Which we're not going to talk about that. We talk about that all the time. But so when a woman my wife has learned, so in 34 years of marriage, she has learned to say to me, direct communication. Okay, honey, I'm going to tell you something. Don't fix it. Just listen. And I have learned, and am still learning, that when she starts rattling off all this emotion, that she probably does not want a solution. She just wants empathy and love and maybe a hug, right? And so there's this give and take. So I think that is, there's so many things you're saying that are like, this is like varsity level material. We're giving you guys 35 and 40 years of experience, 3/4 of a century of experience to your 10 years of marriage. You are so far ahead of us right now. So many of our failures are wrapped into this, right, Michelle?
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for a second. So I shared with you that I hated my wife. I actually prayed, take her out. I don't want to be with a woman 70 years I hate. I was horrible and embarrassing. It hurts me to say it now because I adore her, right? We wrote a book about a lot of this stuff. This book is coming out in 2 weeks, and you spend a lot of time teaching about guardrails to these young brides, especially in these early years when they're trying to figure out marriage, and the marriage is
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension, and you have a video. This is how an affair starts, and you tell a story about when you caught yourself in a potential path to an affair and how you had to make changes. So, what would you speak to our men? You'd share your story because you've been open about that.
Okay.
Share your story a little bit, and then speak to the men who may be in a young and struggling marriage that they're fighting for about building guardrails.
Okay. Yeah, I titled that video on Instagram, "Is This How Affairs Start?"
Yes.
Because I, from the get-go, never, ever, ever wanted an affair and assumed if it happened, it would be on his side, not my side,
Yeah.
because statistically in my brain, that was what it looked like. So it never crossed my mind that I would be susceptible to that. What happened in the context of the season of our marriage was I was expecting our fifth baby. We had six. And my husband at that time was self employed. He was working 15-hour days and out of the house a lot. We would occasionally talk during the day on the phone, but he would come home for dinner every night to make sure that he was there with the kids, to see me, give me a hug, before he went back. And then I saw him when he got home from work, say at 9:30. We had, an hour or whatever. So it was just what we needed to do to make it work. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mother. He wanted me to be the stay-at-home mother. And so that meant him doing what it took to bring that income in. It meant me holding down the fort at home. And that's how we made it work. So one of the things I did was take the children to the doctor, and I had to find a new pediatrician because of our insurance. Now, in those days, it looked different. We did not have the internet.
Back in the 1900s.
Yes. There's no internet to find and look for your doctor, who's taking new patients, who isn't. I had to call my insurance company. I had to get from them a list of 5 doctors in my area who were taking new patients. Then I had to call them and confirm that they would take new patients. I was expecting number 5, so I'm a bigger group coming in, and confirming they took my insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So I found a new doctor. That was a big project. And I took my youngest, who was a little 1-year-old, in. Of course, I had all my children because, who else is going to watch them during the day? And the pediatrician walked in the room. I'd never met him before, and I was not expecting someone my age who was incredibly handsome walk in the room. And I was just like, wait, what? You're kidding me. You're supposed to be like 80 years old, you're not supposed to.
20s at this time.
And what?
You're in your 20s at this time. Early 30s?
Probably 31.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have all my little children with me, but I'm just taken aback because I'm an at-home mother who goes to church. I'm not in social settings. And if I ever am, I'm discounted because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I don't have anything to contribute because I'm just a mom. So when he walked in, I was taken aback, but he looked at all of us and said, "Oh my gosh, you have a large family. I love large families." He affirmed me and the decision my husband and I were sacrificing truly to accomplish. And then he paused and he just got this look in his eye of sadness. And he said, "I wish my wife wanted more." Or maybe he said more than 2, but I knew he had 2 children. And in that moment, my heart went out to him because he had been so vulnerable with me. And in being vulnerable with me, he affirmed that my husband had a great wife and that he wished that he had someone like me. So, oh my gosh, I have a professional man who's attractive, who's just affirmed me in a way I haven't been affirmed in a long time, because I know my husband loves me and appreciates me, but it doesn't make my heart flutter like a compliment that comes out of the woodwork and addresses all my insecurity that I didn't even know I had. So I just stopped again and thought, wow, doesn't it feel good to be affirmed? And then I thought, and I'm a good communicator, I'm great at conversations, I'm great at being vulnerable, I'm great at drawing things out, and I could have drawn out of him in that moment something more. And I thought, I have a decision. I can actually go there with him and just start asking him about who knows what, his marriage, his wife, his desires, how they come to that, who knows. I thought to myself, let's talk about my baby. And
Mm,
so I just did. I put him up there and I focused and I said, yeah, well, we're here for our 1-year-old appointment. And it ended. It ended, right? I got back in the car, still feeling really good about myself. I went home that afternoon and I was reliving the feeling of, wow, someone found me, someone affirmed me. And I just went on with my day and thought it would pass. And a couple days later, it kind of came up again, like, this guy affirmed me. And I thought to myself, where'd that thought come from? I wasn't upset with my husband. I wasn't looking for it. And then again, it was a week later, I thought about it and I thought, this is fire. This is a problem. I cannot let this go any further. And then I thought, is this how an affair starts? Is you just start
mhm.
playing it over and over in your mind of, I kind of want more of that. And I thought, okay, I need to deal with this. I need to run from temptation because even though nothing happened, even though it's highly likely he wouldn't have gone anywhere with that.
Mhm.
He didn't do anything else with it. He didn't say anything inappropriate when I left the room. It was just that slip of vulnerability. And he didn't know I found him attractive. So it wasn't like he was responding to that. So it was me thinking, gosh, I don't want to play with fire. I've got to take care of that. What does that look like? Well, I realized what that looked like was I have to find a new pediatrician. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, oh, come on. I just did all this work to find one. I mean, that's a couple hours of my afternoon of
Mhm.
finding it. I'd thrown away the notes already. I just was done. And I thought, it's just not worth it. I need to not go back. I need to find a new pediatrician and I need to take care of this. So I decided not to tell my husband because I thought, where's that going to land with him? That he's like, I'm working my butt off and now you're having thoughts of this. What? And I thought, it's nothing. It really was nothing. But because of my just fear of playing with fire, I did go and tell my girlfriend, the gal that, whatever, pray for me, or I'd ask her for advice. And I just kind of said, I need to get this out in the open because I know if I hide it, I know if I don't tell anyone that, I mean, for your audience who understands spiritual warfare and Christianity, if we hide sin, and at this point it's not even sin, but if I hide it, it's going to take on a life of its own, and I'm going to be able to keep it in undercover. And I thought, I can't do that. I've got to let my girlfriend know. And so I told her, and I said, I'm not going to go back. And I just, and honestly, by telling her, it just took it all out of my head, and I never thought about it again. It just took I don't know how to put it, kind of like the fire out of it.
The confession brought it to light.
It did, and it set me free from that continuous loop that I didn't even want in
Yeah.
my head.
So I call that a story loop. You started a story loop.
I did, and it made me feel good, and so that's why I kept listening to it or replaying it. So anyway, I do think that's how affairs start, and
It's
I
interesting.
think I was smart to cut it off.
So in the book guardrails, so we have two. This doctor inadvertently breached two guardrails.
Okay,
So
tell
guardrail
us
number
what they
two
are,
is
Jim.
so first of all, your husband Steve, his love language is acts of service. Yours is words of affirmation. So you got 5 kids running around. He's gone 15 hours a day. You need love in the form of affirmation, right? So you go to see this handsome doctor, and I mean, I'm sure handsome played into it on some level, but what he really did that got you going on this cycle was he said, I wish my wife had wanted more children. So basically he shared guardrail breach number two is do not share personal details with another woman. Shared a personal detail. Guardrail number 5 breach. He complimented you, inadvertently complimented you. So he had 2 guardrail breaches, and that launched into this, put you on a cycle that only through confession, even though you hadn't sinned, led down. So this is where affairs start. And this is what people don't realize. And our book talks a lot about that affairs start with these innocuous things
Mm-hmm.
compound over time. So let me ask you this question. This is another thing that you talk a lot about. You and Steve. So if I were to tell you, hey man, so cool, but if you had an affair, you're cheating on your soulmate. I hear this all the time. I'm looking for my soulmate.
Yeah.
You and I have the same stance. And so I just when people say that to me, I go, listen, Tom Cruise has been divorced multiple times. These guys, these Hollywood actors, you don't ride off into the sunset. Can you talk to these young men about, they marry this gal, they go, she's my soulmate. And then they enter marriage in those first couple of years and they go, oh, my soul's ripped out of my body. That's not my soulmate. I made a mistake. Can you talk to these guys about soulmates and what that really means?
Yeah, I don't agree with that term. I don't think it should be something that you're looking for as a condition or a foundation for your marriage. That's based on your feelings, and your feelings are fleeting.
Yes.
I believe that what they're talking about is that feeling that you get when you've done something together, like the feeling of victory. And I think men are going to understand that. It's when you've done something hard together that no one else has done with you. You made sacrifices together. That's your person. That's who had your back when you did something tough. And it's going to look like, for us, it looked like my husband, I talk about this in the book. He was self-employed. It was actually within a year of that experience with the doctor. I was expecting our 5th baby, and there was an earthquake in Southern California. And the aftermath of that was my husband lost his job, which meant we were losing income. We ended up losing our car and our house, and we had to move. And it was so extremely difficult and emotional, but we did it together.
Yes.
And at the end of that, that's my soulmate. That is who is in the trenches with me. And I will never find another man like that. I don't want another man. I know who you are. I know what you bring to the table, the strength. So he became my soulmate, if I have to use that term. I don't even know what it really means, but it's my, and people say my person. They want someone who they feel completes them. I really do think if you are married and decide that you are going to love that person, like you said with your wife, even if she never reciprocates, I'm going to keep doing this for her. If we make that choice, we can learn how to do marriage and be happy because we're learning how to serve someone else. And I think most of those are happy endings. I know there's difficult marriages, and I know not each side of the couple brings that to the equation, but we only can control what we can control. And so I think the whole soulmate thing is a fluid thing, and I think it happens after doing life together. I don't think anyone's a soulmate after 1 or 2 years.
I love that so much. So I've got a young man who I'm very close to who said, hey, I started dating this gal, and she checks all the boxes. And so he's been waiting for almost 30 years, still a virgin, strong Christian, looking for somebody who deserves him, right? And I think that soulmate is the person you choose. That's the soulmate. But this person that you choose as your soulmate, and this person that you do life with over time, you called Steve twice, you called him your person. So why is calling Steve your person better by far than calling him your partner?
Wow. I mean, when I say my person, I mean the one I choose to have my back. He's my man. He's the one who will always be there. It represents for me what we've been through. And I didn't even hear that phrase until my girls were calling it, I got to find my person. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's kind of like my strong pillar. He's the man that comes behind me and has got my back. That's what I feel like. To me, I don't know, partner to me sounds like someone you're not married to and
It
haven't committed to.
haven't committed to. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. So you described something that people don't know. But when I wrote this book, I discovered some things I didn't know before. I was like, this is cool. So in Genesis chapter 2, 18 and 20, God is looking for a helpmeet, or a helper suitable for Adam. And of course, the woman comes on the scene and the rest is history. But he calls her his helper suitable in the Hebrew language. You're going to love this. It's Ezer Kenegdo, and it means the one who stands opposite of me. You just said he has my back. It's one who stands opposite of me. So I'm speaking to men now. Your wife sees what you don't see. She speaks the way you don't speak. She reasons the way you don't reason. She lives the way you don't live. She sees what you don't see. And then you said completes me. She literally has your back. It means the one who stands opposite of me. So she stands opposite, but the word means more than that. It means this. So she literally does completely you, and or he, speaking to your audience. And this is what we do. And this is why this concept of being my person, not my partner, because your partner doesn't have this. Your partner is a contractual agreement,
Right.
that benefits them more than you.
Yeah.
Your person is about and this is where God says after that marriage ceremony in Genesis 2:24, the husband will leave his father and mother and cleave or be joined to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So this is so, so important. So in the context of this oneness, let's talk about this. This is a mistake good parents make, good couples make, that hurts their marriage. So the kids come along. You got 5 rugrats running around. Got another one ultimately comes on the scene, right?
Yep.
6, right? So you have 6 kids running around. Let's say they're into sports or band or whatever they're into, and you're running all over the place, divide and conquer. The propensity I've seen with good marriages, good couples, good parents, the tendency is to make the children the center of the marriage.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the danger of a marriage when the wife is no longer the most important person on the planet and the kids supersede her?
We saw that firsthand with our children. I mean, yes, there's a danger in the marriage between the two of you as to how that's going to fall out. But I think for those that are doing it, they're doing it because they think this is best for their children. Their children need to be the center of everything and to receive their first attention. And we were surprised to discover this. And thankfully, it happened when our children were little. Our little 2.5-year-old, we had told our kids that they could, if they needed us in the middle of the night, they could come into our bedroom, but they could not climb into bed with us. And that was a me thing. I did not want children in my bed. I wanted my husband in my bed, and that was it. And I just decided that was how we both agreed, But we said, you guys can come in if you need to. You can lay on the floor next to our bed so that they felt comforted or whatever. So this one morning, I woke up and my daughter, Mary, was on the floor sleeping, and I was surprised because she hadn't woken me up. So whatever, I didn't say anything. I'm like, how are you, honey? I'm fine, The next morning, it was the same thing. And then it happened 3 mornings in a row. And I looked at Steve like, what is going on here? She never said anything. She's just here. This is still to this day, this is my intuitive, empathetic, compassionate one. She feels deeply. So as a little 2.5-year-old, I said, honey, why are you coming into our bedroom at night? And I promise you, she said, I like it when you're with your husband. She's 2.5. I didn't even know she knew the word husband. And the Lord just told me, she needs to see the two of you are good. That you're together. She wants to be in your aura of the love the two of you have for each other. And she's only getting it when you're in bed at night because daddy's working so much. So Steve and I were stunned, but we thought, the kids aren't seeing us together. When dad comes home, he plays with the children. He sees mom when the kids are asleep. Because remember I told you he came home for dinner? And it was
Mhm.
all about the kids because that's the only hour he had with them every day. So we said, okay, what can we do to help? They need to see us together. So after supper, we decided that we'd go sit on the couch for 10 minutes and we'd tell them, hey, mommy and daddy need just 10 minutes together. This is our time. You guys can play, but this is our time. You're not going to sit on our lap. You're not going to interrupt us. We're going to talk for 10 minutes. And we set the timer. And we just sat, he put his arm around me on the couch. I don't even know what we talked about. It didn't matter. We wanted to be a visual of mom and dad as one, as a happy mom and dad. And we did that for 2 or 3 nights, and she stopped coming into our bedroom. Never said anything to her, never corrected her. She just saw something she hadn't seen. So then we changed it up, and when he got home from work, he would say, because we had always done, Dad's coming home, meet him at the door, everybody go get Daddy. So he's like, you need to get the first hug, honey. I need them to see that you are my priority. So he'd come in the house and he'd say, where's mom? She gets the first hug. So then they would be like, oh, let's go find her, and then they'd go run, mama, daddy wants you. And they loved it. We also realized that even at church, because in our church, we would all sit together, the older ones, if you were, I don't know what it was, 4 or 5, just for the beginning where we would all sing songs and stuff. And we would sit with Steve and then all the kids and then me. So, they couldn't get out either way. And we said, no, we need to sit mom and dad together. The kids are on the side. And if they need us, then we'll deal with that. They need to know that we're all sitting here quietly. It shouldn't be an issue. But we started to look for ways that we could just be a visual representation of what was true. And what was true was mom and dad were important and we did love each other. They didn't need to worry about us. And as they got older, we realized that we actually needed to get some date nights. We weren't able to when they were younger because it was so expensive. But we thought we've got to do something that's just us, one, for our own marriage, and 2, just to kind of show them, like, we have a relationship that's without you kids, and it's okay. So we did make those tweaks, but a lot of the reason we did that was so we could model for our children something that they could see.
That is so simple, yet so incredibly profound. I'm going to ask you in a second to give advice to young dads about how to prioritize. We have a bumper sticker that says "Wife is greater than kids."
Oh, wow.
This is tough in a second marriage and a third marriage. But so you said 3 things. Men are very practical. We want to get action items. So here, guys, listen. Michelle, you said something so profound. You said, "I got the first hug." That is so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a varsity level 4 decades of marriage tip, guys. Give your wife the first hug. Second pro tip, again, sit next. I know a lot of these guys aren't in church. We hope they are, but even if they're in a home group or Bible study, which if they're not in an organized church, they better be in that. Sit next to her. Sit next to her. That tells the world who your person is. And the third thing you said was date nights. So
Yeah.
when Shannon and I, we were so broke when the kids were young, so broke in ministry, had no money. We would go to Mexican food and have potato chips and share a Coke with water. Chips places. We had back in the 1900s, Burger King ran a deal, 99-cent Whoppers. We would do that.
Yeah.
We'd go and look for beach class on the beach. We'd look at a sunset, which San Diego, you can appreciate a good sunset in
Amazing.
Chicago. And so, these are simple things that were so incredibly profound. So, do you have any more low-hanging fruit from our young married men to help them prioritize their bride and to build a strong marriage in this stress bubble? Any other things you can think of that would be really critical for these young men to do?
You know what? Start encouraging her and complimenting her in front of other people. We tried to do that at the dinner table for Steve to say, gosh, your mom really made a good dinner tonight, didn't she? Or I would say, you know what? I was out today, Steve, and somebody came up to me and they said that you had, he was a coach, and they said, gosh, you're just doing such a great job coaching her son's team. So I would give him that compliment so our children could hear. One, it's amazing to give someone a compliment that's a third-hand compliment because it almost means double. But two, I wanted my kids to hear me complimenting him and modeling that. And then I also wanted to share what other people had said. Like, this is what people think about your mom. Like, we're so blessed to have her as your mom. But it's also for a lot of us not intuitive. So if you don't have kids yet, just start practicing it now. Start thinking, how can I encourage her and compliment her now? I think that will go a long way. But now, and when you have kids, and teach your children to compliment mom. We play a game. This is one of my favorite things that we stumbled upon raising our children. Because I'm a words-based person, I was like, we had some argument one night. The kids were quarreling at the table. It was driving me crazy. So I just interrupted them and I said, no, okay, stop. We are going to compliment one another and you are going to give her a compliment. So what can you say that's nice about your sister? And then the sister had to say something nice about someone else at the table besides the brother that just gave her a compliment. And I called it the compliment game. And so at the end, everyone had received a compliment and it went over like, what's a bad thing?
100 bricks.
Yes, it was terrible. My kids were like, what the heck? This is terrible. We're mad at each other. You're making us give a compliment. But I realized in that moment, they've got to do that. They've got to learn how to refocus and appreciate the people they live with, the people who are family, who are ride or die. And so do that. That's like a freebie I give away to everybody. Take that to your family and start complimenting one another and learn how to do it, because it takes some humility to compliment a sibling or a husband that you're mad at, you know?
Well, we call that framing. So
Okay.
you're in your case, your husband, Steve, is a picture that you're painting to the world. In my
Yes.
case, my bride, right? So I'm going to paint a picture of her in front of my children. I failed at this miserably for 2 decades. So painting a positive picture of your bride, of your husband, that's guardrail number 4 for us, by the way, in the book, that we got to be careful, especially around our children as young married. You know, if you're in a traditional type of relationship where you're working and she's staying at home, man, you need to build her up. You need to, she's the nurturer, she's the educator, she's the caregiver, she's the cafeteria worker, she's everything. And you
Yeah.
need to pump her up, because if you portray her poorly, if the picture you're painting is negative, then your kids will grow up and they won't have that respect. And then what you did with your husband is his love language is acts of service and not affirmation. But what you're doing is you're painting a picture of respect when you say, hey, I ran into somebody and guess what they said about you. Even though that's his love, not his love language, it's still his love language is respect over all other love languages,
Yeah.
the universal love language. And so you began to paint that picture. So that is so good. So good. Well, we're coming to the end here of our time. Unfortunately, there's so many more questions I have for you, but let's throw out one. Like, when you think about these young wives that you're working with, and you think of these men they're married to, and these men, you know, are listening to this podcast in the thousands, what would you want to close with these young men who are husbands to help them love their wives better?
Well, you know what? I am just going to assume this is universal, because what I like to tell women is you need to believe the very best about your husband. You have an inner narrative that no one else is privy to listening to except you. And you know exactly what is going on in that head, the loop of accusation that you have against your husband. And I know you're probably not even realizing that it's there, but you are holding on to the fact that he was short with you this morning, or he didn't put that cup in the dishwasher again, and you just haven't let go of it. So I don't think you're doing that on purpose, ladies, and I bet men aren't either. It's just the way we're wired. We have a mind that just likes to think. And so you've got to pay attention to your inner narrative and clean it up. And when you have an accusation against your husband or your wife, look at it and be practical and say, well, what if I was to believe the best? What maybe happened there? Rather than immediately accusing them or taking it personally, Like if my husband is late, I can immediately think he doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about our schedule. He only cares about his work. Or if I'm believing the best about him, I can think, shoot, maybe someone walked into his office at the last minute. Maybe he got a phone call. Maybe if you live in the Midwest, maybe he is stuck behind a train, because that happens to us all the time. But my advice is believe the best before you immediately choose to believe something negative or accusatory about your spouse. Wait until you've heard the whole story, because 9 times out of 10, there's a reason for what happened, and you've just allowed this negative loop to wash your brain for an hour when it was completely unnecessary.
That's good advice for me. I appreciate that. You know, in the PNW, Pacific Northwest, we get behind we call it it's a tractor. It's the Oregon traffic jam, tractor harvest. So, well, gosh, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. I know we've got a lot of closet women out there listening, trying to understand your man better. Where can they get your book, Hey Beginner Wife?
100%. Here's my book. It is available on Amazon for sure. If you want more information, go to heybeginnerwife.com. You can download the first chapter for free. You can also download a free chapter from the companion guide that I wrote to go with the book. And there's frequently asked questions on there to give you a little more information. All the chapters are listed on there. It's also available as an audiobook from Audible and Google Play and Spotify and other ones I've never even heard of. So just put it into Google, put Hey Beginner Wife book, you'll find it. You can ask your librarian to purchase it for you so you can check it out.
Well, I sure appreciate you on the show, and golly, if we can fix the marriage, we can change the world. The marriage is the heart of every successful nation. So God bless what you're doing. I sure appreciate you. And until next time, we'll get them. Hey guys, make sure you follow us or subscribe on your podcast app. I was just talking to somebody the other day who listened to our podcast, but when I looked at their app, they did not follow us. Make sure you follow us. A lot of people just watch without subscribing, but when you follow us, it helps us climb the chart so that we can impact more and more people for Christ. So give back to this ministry by hitting subscribe or follow. And if you like this episode, send it on to one of your buddies. Until next time, feel the wet sand on the arena floor. Hear the deafening roar of the crowd. Taste the sweetness of victory. Smell the stench of battle. Get in the game. Get dirty. Grind it out. Welcome to the stress bubble battle. And be a man.